which is me being more of a design/PM hybrid, because I'm not only pushing pixels, I'm also thinking about like this thing, okay, I'm going this direction. Would that help, strategy business-wise? Because, ABC, and then I would talk to him. So that makes me think like, hey. We are kind of live now. This is what I always wanted to say. We are live.
And we're officially live.
We are officially live, exactly. I mean, this is just an experiment.
Hey, Nick, how are we doing?
Yeah, it's going well. How about you?
Good. I'm just recovering after a conflict. All the noise.
All
the noise that's been going around.
Have you made all the game changers?
I have not. I'm a slow adopter. I have too much stuff to do, but eventually I'll be testing stuff out.
Yeah, talking about being a slow adopter, it took me a while to start using auto layout.
Same.
Yeah, it's and now I'm super quick with it, like all the shortcuts and dragging around, like and then when my non-designer clients are looking over my shoulder during a meeting or whatever, and they're all like, whoa, that happened quick, like what are you doing? I'm like, well, it's just this and that shortcut. Just relatively short ago I was like, don't need it, so yeah, that's probably going to happen with all the Figma enter word here things they have announced.
Yeah, give it a couple of weeks or I'll be experts in no time.
True. Yeah, well, with that out of the way, by the way, they're doing Config London now, I think. No, anyway, not important. Product managers, I think, is something that gives you the chills, or a product manager / designer hybrid. Like, what was it again?
Yeah, so I think, well, first off, I love PMs. They're my closest collaborators. But just I was thinking about like how roles might evolve. I think this sparked from our last conversation about these new AI tools and then where kind of the industry is going. And I feel as though those two, like the role of the PM and the role of the designer, may be consolidating into one.
Right. Why is that?
I think there's a lot of gray area that's happening. And I think this is more relevant for startups specifically, where there's not a lot of budget. We have to move fast. And I think there's already an overlap between the skill sets that both roles provide. The gap obviously is design aspect from the PM side, and then more of the strategic project planning and business side of the PMs. But with these new tools, like no-code tools and then AI generation, I think the gap is closing. So I think they will become one, whatever job title we give it, but both sides can come to play.
Right. Well, I think you mentioned startups. A company needs to reach a certain size before any type of manager role is needed, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Imagine like large corporations, lots of managers, startups, mostly developers and perhaps a designer. Yeah, so that's one thing for sure. Like you need to reach a certain size, and anyone below that size is, I think, expected to be more of a generalist anyway. Because, like you say, of budgets, or well, lack of budget rather.
But also, yeah, exactly. So like your startups, you're wearing multiple hats anyways. And then as large as the company grows and gets larger, you become more of a specialist, or roles become more specialized in larger companies. So I think that role will kind of evolve. So you'll be PM / designer / PM, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we're dealing, like, product design has evolved. We used to start just doing design. We were web designers, then UI designers came out. See, UX designer, then UI UX designer, and then it was product designer. I think the name is arbitrary, but I think this what we what we do on a day-to-day basis has evolved, I think, in that direction.
Yeah. Hasn't it already happened? That overlap, or do you expect it to be even more clear in the near future?
I think it's going to be more clear. I think it's going to become more clear just because I don't know if you watched the video recently of Duolingo's design lead. He got rid of the word UX designer and he refused to hire UX designers at all. And he renamed the product design entity within the company to be product experience instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Removing the word user because everyone should be a user advocate. That's table stakes. That's what should be. So it's about focusing on the product experience and the business side as well. So I found that interesting.
I I think we could fill a whole episode or maybe even two on Duolingo, because they also had, in addition to what you're saying, they also had like one of those, quote unquote leaked CEO announcements about becoming AI first. But I think, I've used Duolingo before to learn Spanish, which I think was relatively early days for Duolingo. But they lost me along the way because of the very, very clear, gamification and having to get gems and really the over the top, you're doing a great job kind of animation. So they lost me along the way. And looking at the backlash of some of their announcements, outside of the design bubble we're in, I feel like they are not really the authority to for us to look at as an example. Like, oh, they removed UX because everyone's doing this and that. Well, it doesn't really show to me in how they build their product currently. So I'm a bit conflicted there. That's one thing, and then the second thing is you talking about PM/design overlap. It makes me think of a great PM I had in my corporate days a few years ago. He would always bring a few sketches to our project kickoff meetings. Like, he already did a few iterations, a little bit of thinking up until the point where he would get stuck. Then he would hand it over to me, which is kind of hybrid. Like, he did some design work, and then I would take over, I would clean it up, and then I would return with a whole bunch of more strategy type questions to to improve the cleaning up of design that I did, which is me being more of a design/PM hybrid, because I know I'm not only pushing pixels, I'm also thinking about like this thing. Okay, I'm going this direction. Would that help, strategy business wise? Because ABC, and then I would talk to him. So that makes me think like, hey, Tyler is right. Like, that's going to happen. At the same time, this was the only PM I had that kind of relationship with, where that hybrid was really happening. But then again, that was a few years ago, and since then I've been mostly working with founders and developers, not so much PMs anymore. So I'm a bit out of the game, I guess. But that's what I'm noticing, at least in the real world, of what you're saying. Like, it is happening.
Okay, so I'm curious. Like you just mentioned, you're mainly working with engineers. So who like founders directly with the PM? Like who's then I guess who's taking over the strategic part? Is it that founder, or who assumes that PM responsibility in like those types of projects?
Well, I'm thinking of two companies I'm working with at the moment. Both of them, coincidentally or not, have two founders, where one is very technical and the other one is more either a user himself, meaning he's solving his own problem and he's turning it into a business, or it's more of a marketing/sales type person. And then I would mostly work, if it's like exploration stage design, with a non-technical founder. And once we're in that rhythm of shipping updates and features, I'm mostly working with the technical founder, which is let's say he's the main developer. Like, I'm not going to say it's a CTO, like, because it's all like early stage, like smaller companies. So that main developer/founder, he's thinking about the business the whole time. because he's talking to his co-founder, the marketing sales guy, and we sometimes have a meeting together with everyone. So in that way, we're all sharing the PM type role, and we're all basically the hybrid, I guess you're talking about.
Exactly. Which, I mean, goes to my point. It's like it's early startup. Everyone has
It is,
different roles. You have a small team with limited skill set, so everyone has to adopt responsibility.
Yeah. Interesting thing is that one of those two is like really early stage. They have a low 5-figure ARR, so revenue a year, which isn't profitable at all. But then really early stage, so good signs because they already have some revenue, but there's no PM type work at all yet. But then the second one, they are way bigger, so it's probably not early stage anymore. I don't think it would do them justice. They are just above 1 million ARR, which is substantial for me at least. I think that's very that's a lot. That when they are hiring, when they are growing in the sales and developer department. They are not. I haven't heard any talk about let's get a PM. So that makes me think, like, if it's representative at all, maybe the PM role is being absorbed. So it's not a two-way street, like you're saying. Like the PM is going to do design, and the designer is going to do PM. Maybe everyone is going to do PM instead of a dedicated PM.
That's interesting. Yeah, it could be. It could be the case.
This is just me thinking out loud, by the way. I have no clue if my clients are representative of the world at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been that like trifecta, so engineering, product, and design. And it was usually made that way, so you have a bit of balance. So, I think I mentioned in a couple episodes ago, when you're doing both design and the implementation part, because you know how the code works, you may not go outside, might not go big picture and then design outside of the constraints. So I think the purpose of the trifecta is that like everyone has opposing views or a different type of view of how things should work. So the contrary, the negative thing I see is that if you don't have that opposing view, you're not thinking outside of the box potentially. Because in the end, if let's say that job gets absorbed and then it's just this design PM entity, and then it's just design and engineering, and then eventually we're going to be merging into one single person that does all three.
Yeah.
Like the Terminator.
Do you think that's a problem?
It could be. It might be. I just see a trend of, companies like cutting employee count, regardless of the type of company, not just like Duolingo. I don't know if they cut it. I think Shopify did cut a bunch of employees. And then one of their mandates was to have everyone use some kind of AI tool. So whenever this looks like, I feel like AI is going to be a partner in all of it, and efficiency is going to be the number one KPI. So you can have your deficiencies, and then let's say you're terrible at writing marketing copy, but you're great at strategy. Instead of hiring outside to an agency, just have someone create a white paper for you or create that email copy for you directly using Claude or ChatGPT.
Yeah. And I'm a little bit of a sidetrack, but in the world you're describing, I'm a bit concerned about us looking at myself, the how exhausting the context switching is going to be. If we can do so many different things, so much faster than today, all in a single day, all on your own. It sounds exhausting. So maybe you still need a dedicated person for it, i.e. PM.
Yes. For quality, like at some point you need quality assurance. Like we have this idea of shipping fast and test early. What if the cadence in which we ship things, it's liquid fast, and we don't have time to reflect. It's like, okay, we ship fast, let's test, and then we're missing some of that magic and some of that quality assurance before shipping something. Because there's probably a delicate balance of what we ship and how fast we ship it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, if you go faster, there's a higher risk of it being buggy or low quality, usually. So you can take more time, but then, can be too long. Now, I'm curious about your team and your company, like where you're working. Like, what's how many PMs do you have? How many PMs do you work with? Do you think it's not enough, or do you need more, or what's that like?
It depends on the size of the project. I think usually one to two, depending on like the overlap between between the application. I think 1 to 2 is good. And depends how fast the company's moving. So also, how fast are we shipping things? How much discovery is needed, and how much alignment is needed across departments, which is important, making sure that sales is aligned and customer success is aligned, C-suite's aligned, and then they're kind of like the orchestrator. So it's there's a lot of moving pieces sometimes, especially like in enterprise software. So it brings a bit of sanity to the team sometimes, especially at a bigger scale.
Well, that would speak for having a dedicated person to play that role, like the midfield general, so to say. But that again, that doesn't mean that that person should be highly specialized only in management. We always talk about should designers know how to code, that kind of thing. And then one of the big arguments is being able to speak the language of a developer. It's easier for handover and collaboration and that kind of stuff. That would apply for a project manager across multiple roles. Like they should know enough design to speak the language, know enough corporate talk to speak to stakeholders. And the same for any type of role they come into contact with during a project. So, should designers know how to code? Should PMs know how to fill in the blanks? That's probably a yes on everything.
Yeah, I think it's across the board. Like to your point, yeah, I think they should learn how to design. I think everyone should learn how to design, developers included. The more context into like other departments' process, the better. And to your point, that's how we communicate better. And when we're passing things on, we're communicating in that specific language to that.
Yeah.
Whether it's engineering, marketing, sales, design.
Yeah. I think so. How about a fractional head of product? That's someone I'm working with for another company where he's like the middle person between the founders and the developers and me. Like he really helps the founders focus on the right things, and then he translates what they need to me, basically. It shields me a little bit from being involved in that kind of talk, which would take up my time from focusing on like really the design in depth. He doesn't call himself a project management, but it feels like he is a PM, in what he does.
I'm very curious about, because I've been hearing fractional, like that job title come up very often. Curious what does that entail? Does it just mean part-time? Like what does that term mean?
Usually a head of something is, a upper management role, something in-house, something full-time, it's a chief something officer, or then maybe slightly less official. And then the fractional, like you're saying, just means like part-time and cheaper. Because, again, budget constraints, but you want to have some of the expertise. It feels like a bit of a buzzword today, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I feel like it's a bit of a buzzword. Like fractional, that sounds interesting. It just means low commitment. Things like in the way of like a Fiverr. I think that's gonna be a a job on Fiverr soon. A fractional this person.
Well, maybe. The one I'm talking about is very good at his job. Which I wouldn't associate that right away with something you can just put on a marketplace somewhere. Like, I think he would be in high demand if he would be, if he would be looking, if he like he's full on work, like he doesn't need anything else, so he's not posting online like, hey, I'm available. But if he would, I think he would be in high demand. So the low commitment is basically, hourly wise, yes, like it's half a day or 1 or maybe 2 days a week. But the impact is quite big. Usually because then the founder or the developer or marketer, like the person they're working with, they usually don't have that type of hat on. Like, they don't have the PM/strategy mindset or experience. So like it's not as tangible as I'm making 10 flows a week, but it does help people get unstuck. And it guards me from being involved in too much strategy talk and politics, which I don't mind being involved in. I would prefer it even, but it would take it helps me not lose too much of my design time being in meetings, which is perhaps one of the main goals of a PM, to keep the obstacles out of the team's way.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be those meetings are fun, but then your calendar is full, and there's, to your point, there's no time to actually do. No one executes. So you missed
I
that.
always feel a bit sad at the end of a meeting heavy day because it feels like I haven't done anything. I know it's
True,
probably
but
not really true, but it
I think
does feel that way.
there's huge value in those types of sessions. Like sometimes it just feels like everyone's in a meeting just building over an Excel sheet, but um, the real value is like the alignment. Everyone's talking about, okay, we have these 7 things on the table. What's more important? Is it this one? Is it, well, why is it important? Is it because it's in alignment with our yearly goal? Like, yes or no? Like, that's interesting. So it's interesting to kind of sometimes it just feels like an extra expensive meeting. But I feel like there's more value if there's clear alignment. And then once we break off and do our non-meeting time, we're more focused.
Yeah, that's true. It's like that saying. I'm not sure if it's made up, but if you have an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend 57 minutes sharpening my axe instead of just starting to hit away at a tree. Like, that's probably what all these meetings are all about. Like, I know I have to, let's say I want to redesign a footer somewhere. And then I've had a very useful meeting. We all now know what to do, but I still haven't redesigned the footer. And then I feel like, well, I've been in meetings all day. I haven't made any progress, but it's very likely that the next day I will be done much quicker with redesigning the footer because of that meeting,
Exactly.
So I'll feel better the next day. But at the end of a day with lots of meetings, I feel like I've been standing still. But that's probably a common feeling when you have a day full of meetings.
Yeah. Plus, it's also just emotionally draining. I feel like
That's true.
Your brain has been running on 100 for the majority of the day.
Yeah. Also, when you're working from home, you're looking at screens all day, and then in meetings, it feels extra exhausting. Not sure why. Because if I wouldn't have that meeting, I would still look at screens all day. Maybe it's just a type of work, I guess.
Yeah, I think once you're doing the design work, there's like it's pattern recognition. So I think you've
That's a good
seen
one.
some of these problems before. But when you're in those types of meetings, it's all new, fresh problems that requires absolute attention at all times.
Yeah, well, that's true. You can get into a good flow when designing, and then you turn on some music and it's going really well, and then it's autopilot in a way. Yeah, that's true. No, I feel like it's we really want to fuse together roles because now we're talking designer plus uh, project manager, but we also talked about designer plus developer. I'm not sure if we can do all three together, or maybe if there's a third one. So I'm wondering if we are maybe expecting too much fusion to happen in the
Yeah,
future.
maybe. Yeah, speaking of that, the coveted design engineer title, which is the unicorn that we're looking for. But I feel it's like that example, if you've seen it, where it's like there's three switches. It's good, cheap, and fast. You can never be all three.
Mm.
Maybe
Yeah,
maybe two is the absolute maximum, and you
yeah.
need that third one for a little balance.
Well, that I think you're saying something really interesting here because they say the same about being able to do two things, like you're saying, good, fast, cheap. But then if you're a designer and a developer, or a designer and a project manager, the designers will say like, well, you can't just do design on the side, it's too challenging, there's too much going on. And then the PM will say, well, you can't just do PM on the side, there's too much going on. Like
Mm.
there's some pride in we are a designer and we can do design things. But I'm learning a lot of development at the moment, as you know. um, I'm by no way on par with a developer of 10 years of experience, but I'm getting better every day. And I think if I can keep this up for 5 years, I will be quite a decent developer. But it's not like I'm going to unlearn my design skills because I'm still designing every day. So I don't really think that's true. Like you can only be one of the two.
Mm.
Currently I'm, well, it's like I said, like I'm not a good developer yet, but I will be. And I think that will apply for any type of hybrid role. Like if you just practice long enough, like it's basically just the start of your career again, but from a secondary career.
Yeah, maybe it's actually just an evolution of an individual. I'm thinking about it like you're learning many skills, and then oftentimes you go off and do your own thing, go the entrepreneur route, where you have no choice to assume multiple roles.
Yeah.
And then the goal is to buy back your time by hiring your first employee, and then your second and your third.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have a bit of context on a little bit of everything, but you hire roles who are good at the specific thing that you're not really good at. So maybe it's
Yeah.
just an evolution of um, maybe someone's journey
Mhm.
through the
Yeah.
entrepreneur route.
Yeah. Well, that's true. How does the designer slash PM hybrid show in your daily work, like from your perspective? Are you doing any PM type tasks in your day to day?
I don't like a lot. I think it feels sometimes that there's a bit of like the discover process and the alignment is part PM. But I think the lines are pretty clear. Um, But yeah, I think the lines are clear where I'm currently at. Plus, again, it goes back to like how much work is there to be done, and sometimes we don't have time. We have to focus on uh, what we have to do and get those get like the workflows and the designs out,
Yeah.
so that you can test, right?
Yeah, that's true. Um, do you think smaller projects can be self-managed so that a team can be a PM of their own?
I think if it's small enough, if it's straightforward, I think it could be done
Yeah.
relatively straight. Yeah, it can be, if it's
Yeah.
like a quick, small little feature that needs to be adjusted, enhanced, it probably could. But then the question is, when is it released?
Yeah, true. And then I think someone will step up to be to do the little bit of PM work that needs to be done in a straightforward project, presenting it to stakeholders and that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe it's the all these different roles. It's just whatever is needed in the time, and we can shape shift and become the resemblance of what that characteristic is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The thing I value the most from a PM is what I just mentioned, the shielding of the team from distraction. It's in my corporate days, I learned the agile Scrum way of working, and then you would have like the product owner, which feels like basically just a project management. And then they are really in between stakeholders and the team. And it's nice to work that way if you don't really have to be concerned about the stakeholders, or if you know that someone else will just, take care of it for you. Um, so if this hybrid role will grow in popularity, I do hope the actual PM will still do the shielding of the team.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And there's just also value into knowing like why we're shipping a thing, and then what does that contribute like to the roadmap, and then like the business outcomes. Like we can be shipping a bunch of fixes, but are we shipping the right fixes? And what strategy is it being accurate on? So at the micro level, we can kind of maybe assume these roles, but like holistically, we need like that alignment and that vision to know what to execute and what to release when.
Mhm. Yeah. So do you think the roles will survive? Those two things will still be two people, or do you think it will go that far that it will be the same single person?
Feel if if the not to be too dramatic, if the Terminator world we're about to live into, where we're assuming where we're leveraging these AI tools, and it is true that company sizes will not be as big anymore, and we're just kind of automating a bunch of these maybe junior entry tasks, um, possibly, and we might be in a world where we just have a bunch of micro SaaS companies or a bunch of small companies that do one specific thing very well. Um, um, and we don't need large companies anymore because we're so efficient.
Yeah, I think that could be a very philosophical episode at some point where, because I think the way, when we get more efficient, the big company will want to do more. And then they will still need the same or more people.
Yeah, but I think the growth will be slow. Yeah, it's true. They'll be able to do more. Um, Here's what that looks like, though. That seems like the
Yeah.
faster a company grows, the more bells and whistles a thing has. It just
Mhm.
is complicated UX.
Yeah. But that's the thing, because there's no way there's a CEO somewhere who's like, well, we're more efficient now. I'm happy with how things are. They will always want more.
Very true.
Yeah. I am curious though, because as maybe the big closing question here is, you really didn't want to talk about this type of thing, the designer slash PM hybrid, based on your reaction in the beginning. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if you told me why. Like, why is this such a sensitive topic for you?
Well, it's just as roles change, people get very protective of what they do. When we were designers just doing design, and then we were told that we had to do a bit more, it's like, well, I'm losing a bit of what I thought my worth was. And
Right.
so, like from a design perspective, I probably do like 30% design and 70% strategy. Am I still a designer, or am I a strategist? So I think it's always it's a weird feeling when
Yeah,
your what you do changes.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. So then you're a strategic designer.
That's the the strategy first, designer second.
Fixed it. Yeah. Well, but that's true. Um, I also have to remind myself that our roles have changed many times, and they are always changing. And what when we left school at some point, we had a starting point, but that was, like, how would you say this? The role before has changed to become that thing which you think was the starting point. There were design roles, or disappearing design roles before I finished school in 2015. You know, so it's not that AI is changing something, and that if we look back in time, that we have periods of change and periods of no change. Like there's always change. But because of AI just coming out of nowhere, even though there's been research for years, like it feels like there's a big change now, which is probably true, but there's always change. I think that's something for us to remember. The AI change will also settle down at some point, and then there will be something new, which is you change or you disappear, I think is what they say. You have to adapt.
Adapt or die.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, maybe if you're out of a job then and out of money and no food and living on the street, well, then that might happen. But I think if you try and pay attention to the world around you, which is very challenging, then you can, you can change together with the change, and you'll still be a designer in 10 years or a design PM hybrid.
Yeah, whatever this evolves into, I'm very curious what the next iteration of product designer becomes to do.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll just fall back to design.
Yeah. I wrote an article on that once because I was really sick of all the different design labels, and the article was called "You're Just a Designer," and then just between brackets, and then I think the closing sentence was "You're just a designer, and that's fine." You know, this really was my rebellious stage.
I think that's okay too. I think being a designer is just fine. Like it's there's such anxiety around having to be assuming all these new techniques, doing like it's fine just to sometimes just design. That'll be your happy place.
Yeah, well, that's that, and we don't even mention some of the design rules. Like inside of my bubble, no one talks about the service design rule, which is something I did multiple projects in. And back in the day, you also had the interaction designer, which I don't see anyone talk about at all anymore. Web designer, UI, UX product, UX researcher, like the list goes on. Maybe we're all just designers / PM hybrid again.
Yeah. I like the idea of just designer. So we stop changing these names and adding these. Just put it in the job description and I'll call myself a designer.
Keep it simple. Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, this makes me think. Like I'm maybe too focused on the design / dev hybrid. I should take a step back and review my projects and then listen and consider if I'm already doing some PM work there or not, and if I should.
You're calling yourself the wrong title.
Yeah. Well, I'm when we finish this recording, I'm probably more confused than I was this morning. Maybe. Well, I don't know. All right. Any closing remarks, or can we move on to the teaser for the next episode?
Let's tease it up. Let's tease it.
All right. So, I'm thinking a lot about movement recently on websites, and I'm thinking that perhaps we're overdoing it a bit. Like maybe could be. Maybe things are moving around too much on websites. And you mentioned being a designer, just a designer. Weren't we supposed to design something that's easy and fun to use, not confusing? And is motion confusing? Is it overdone? That kind of thinking. That's been on my mind lately a lot.
We should not give us all these new fancy new tools. We gotta use.
Well, that's what I'm thinking as well. Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons. Like the entry level is, it's much easier to get into today with certain tools. So where does it go from useful and a nice touch to being overdone? Not sure yet, but I'm
curious what your thoughts on that. But I'll pause it there.
I have lots of thoughts, and like always, it's just me rambling a lot of thinking, and then you being super calm and asking a bunch of questions that will either help me or make me more confused.
Well, hopefully we'll bring some clarity.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I'm looking forward to it already.
All right.
Till next time.